You're listening to the Breakaway Wealth Podcast, the show that helps you build wealth faster, think outside the box, and break out of the herd. Here's your host, Jim Oliver.
Welcome back, Breakaway Wealth. I'm your host, Jim Oliver, and with me today, my special guest, Auguste Auger. Auguste, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
And
how you doing today?
Auguste, I'm smiling because I always, even if your name was Jim Brown, I would say, okay, say your name for me. And I was like, I know I'm going to butcher this, but Auguste Auger. And you said it's French. And I'm like, that's cool. I play golf with a guy. His last name is spelled Forer. And he says it's Foyer. And I'm like, wow, I think that's Fourier. Like, it sounds French. He goes, well, it's not French. It's this. And I'm like, all right, man, I'll call you whatever way you pronounce your name, I'm going to call you that. But Auguste, tell everybody a little bit about you, what you do, and what we're here to talk about today.
Yeah, so I'm 21 years old. I'm out of the Midwest. I'm in Lincoln, Nebraska. And for work, I do a lot of different things, just kind of in the online space. But kind of my main focus is UGC marketing. UGC stands for user-generated content. So basically organic style marketing for brands. And so I create those advertisements, and then I also have a coaching program, and I work directly with TikTok to help kind of run and manage their program, because the main platform I work on is TikTok. That's kind of my main gig, but I have a lot of other things going on the side as well, kind of.
Yeah. So you know what? Okay, so let's talk about this. I'm 59 years old. You're 21 years old. So we're at a different place, and we were taught things differently. It's interesting because my girlfriend, who's younger than me, she watches me use my phone and she'll grab it like, that's not how you do that.
Yeah.
And she's like, can't you just slide your thumb from the top or from the corner? I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, here, you just organize my phone, get it to where it's efficient. And then I'll start to try to learn how to use it better.
Especially for my generation, it's just kind of second nature, I think,
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool, because the one thing that I've learned as I've gotten older is I learned from people that are older than me, same age as me, and then younger than me, because we all have different experiences and different perspectives. And what you've been taught, almost 40 years younger than me, is different than what I was taught. There was no cell phones. We didn't talk about that. There was no social media. There was none of that stuff. In fact, when I was a kid, Auguste, there wasn't even like answering machines. So like, if you wanted to go over to your friend's house, you didn't call it their house. You just went over there.
Yeah.
Hey, is Auguste here? Nope, he's not here. You could be hiding in your room, but
yeah, it's crazy to think about.
By the way, there's positives to that, because you're not on point 24 hours a day, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where you could text somebody, hey, they didn't text me back. I mean, what's going on? I wonder why they must be mad at me, like, especially in relationships, et cetera, right? So I really like this perspective, and I like that you have that. So how'd you get into this?
So sort of long story short, my junior year of high school, I played sports all of high school. I was really into that. That was kind of my thing. That was what I spent all my time doing. But my junior year of high school, I tore my ACL, which, if you know anything about doing that, it knocks you out for like a year. And so pretty much all I was doing was physical therapy, and all the time I spent doing sports, I had like tons of extra free time. And I had a buddy at the time who did social media and streamed on Twitch and stuff like that. And so I actually started by streaming on Twitch, which I actually just kind of recently have backed off of doing a couple months ago. So I actually hung on to it for a while. So I started around 16. And I did that all the way up until like partway through last year. But then I kind of picked up other, I guess, online side hustles, you could say, for lack of a better term. But my main source of income for a long time was just like straight social media, personal brand. And then kind of off the back of that, I built, the community I have around the ad program I teach, and like how I got into that. I got into the ad program like 2 years ago. It's fairly new. It's on TikTok. And so I got into that through a friend that I met through streaming. So that's kind of how that all came together.
So let's back up for a second. It's because, I coached baseball, football, and wrestling for 15 years. I don't know if you wrestled, but did you wrestle ever?
No, I didn't. I played basketball, football. I did a lot of stuff. I swam on a competitive swim team for like 10 years, golfed, tennis.
I just know Nebraska is a big wrestling state. Yeah. So that's why I had to ask.
Yeah.
But so, one thing that I learned is when I was building my financial planning firm and I started my own firm, or didn't start it, but I was the head of the firm at 28, and I only hired athletes. And I
Cool.
hired athletes for one reason, is I could do all of these assessment tests for somebody, but what I couldn't do is I didn't know what you would do when you got hit in the mouth, right?
Yeah.
Like if you got hit in the mouth, are you going to just go in the fetal position on the couch and just feel sorry for yourself? Or are you going to fight back?
Mm-hmm.
Athletes learn that, hey, everybody fails, everybody loses, and everybody misses the shot at the end of the game. And guess what? You get up the next day, you do it again, and the next day you make the shot. And so I always thought athletes were taught to be resilient. So as a kid, I understand where you got that competitiveness, but where did you learn that kind of entrepreneurship to want to? Most 21-year-olds are, juniors in college, and they're, drinking with their buddies and eating pizza and, all of that. How did you at 16, because something you said to me stood out, at 16, I started doing this. How did that happen? Who did you learn that from, or how did that happen?
So I think a few different things, and great question. I guess I could say fourth generation business owner. So my great grandfather had an insurance company. My grandfather had a lawn care company, and then my dad has a financial advising firm as well. And so I think part of it's just in my blood. And seeing, growing up, seeing my dad run his own business, I think it was kind of always in the back of my head that I didn't want to have a normal job, because I'm kind of aware of the fact that, obviously there's nothing wrong with the typical 9 to 5, but most of the time with that, you're not really ever going to achieve, financial freedom or time freedom. And just growing up, knowing my dad was always able to be around and provide for us in so many ways, I was like, that's something I want for my life. So I think that was probably the start of it. Like I can think back to when I was even, 8, 9, 10, me and my brother would go knock on our neighbors' doors over Christmas break and shovel snow for them, just, for like $20, but we were, 10 years old. So it was kind of a big thing for us. That's kind of what we started doing originally. But I think that's part of it. And then, I don't know. I think a lot of it is the competitiveness. And I think the appeal to me in business is that it's kind of like sports where, there's no limitation on how far you can go. You know what I mean? Like you can do whatever you want and you can build. And I like that too, just knowing, especially in the online space, there's so many different ways I can constantly pivot and change what I'm doing, at any time kind of. And it's always a different, thing. It seems like each quarter.
No, so I love that too. And athletes appreciate that. I'll give you an example. I didn't start playing golf. I grew up very poor. I didn't know anything about golf. I didn't really know that younger people played golf, to be honest. And I thought it was just that, like when you got, when you're retired and you're old, okay, you learn to play golf and that's what they're doing out there.
Mm-hmm.
But when I started playing golf, it was like any other sport. It was like, hey, the more that I chip and putt, guess what? The better I become at chipping and putting. The more that I hit drives on the driving range, the more that I play, the more that I got better and better and better and better, right? Mm-hmm. So it's the same way in business, right? You got to put in the effort and you got to try different things and oh man, that didn't work. And like when you're not an athlete, something doesn't work, you stop. And when you're an athlete and you try to throw a curveball and you couldn't, or you try to make free throws and you miss 7 out of 10, you just keep working at it. And pretty soon, if you work at it enough, you're making 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
But also, you also know that you're going to miss. And so like, I love that athletic part of it. And I think athletics teaches and sports teaches people so much.
It really does.
So let's talk about TikTok. Because if you say to me, I really don't know anything about TikTok. And I get people that like, I have a TikTok handle, whatever it is called, but like, I don't know. I don't think I've ever posted anything. And I always get confused when people send me stuff. And I can't really tell you the difference between TikTok and Snapchat and whatever these other ones are that people send me like invites to, or they send me stuff. And I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. So like for an old guy, explain why TikTok and how you can market on TikTok if for other business owners that are sitting out there listening that might be good clients for you.
Yeah. So, I mean, biggest thing with TikTok, just kind of from the base, I think most people know this, but it's a short form platform. So what short form content is just like scrollable in feed, short form videos. So usually anywhere from 5 seconds to a minute. And the thing with TikTok and like why it's such a good place to market is, to my knowledge, off the top of my head, it has the most active users out of any other social media platform. It has, I think, 2 billion active monthly users.
Wow.
And it just, I don't know why this is for sure, but TikTok just has an extremely strong community of people, and just like a lot of creators got started on TikTok because they have a really good algorithm. And so that's kind of where a lot of creators built their base. So pretty much any, creator of at this point, at least newer creator, got popular from TikTok. Even people like Alex Hermosi. I don't know if David Goggins. I'm trying to think of other business people off the top of my head, but people like that, a lot of them got popular off of TikTok. And so for brands, I mean, this is somewhat obvious probably at this point, but like so many less people now are watching, TV. For the longest time, marketing was done on, magazines. Like all of brand spend was done on magazines. And then it was, newspapers, or maybe a mix of the both. And then it was TV. And now it's like, okay, people, if you just walk outside, everybody's just sitting there like this, just staring at their phone.
Yeah.
And TikTok being one of the most, popular social media platforms, it's an amazing place to market just because of, like I said, their algorithm, the community on there. And especially with the program that we do on TikTok, the program I do specifically on TikTok is called TikTok One. The whole point of that is to do like organic style marketing. So kind of how you were talking earlier, Jim, about doing, for your marketing, you want to lead with your personal brand and then guide people to your product, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of more of an organic style. And same thing with this marketing. We make the videos to blend in the algorithm so it doesn't seem like an ad. And then, you kind of make it seem natural, and then you just, go over to the ad section, or, convey over to it.
So what would you say to somebody sitting out there and they, like maybe it's your pops, right? Like, hey, I'm running a financial planning firm. TikTok is only really for young people. They don't have any money. I'm looking for the people that have money, I mean, you've heard some of these objections.
100%. Yeah. And there is a sliver of truth to that. Like to some extent, yeah, you're not going to get like the older customer base as much. There are older people on TikTok. There are people well into their 40s, 50s, 60s on TikTok. But there's a sliver of truth to that. But also you got to think about, people like, we'll just keep using Alex Hermosi as an example. Although a lot of his audience, might not necessarily have a ton of money yet, you're kind of planting those seeds. And the personal brand game it's a lifelong game. And it's really the best game you can play, because if you can build a strong personal brand and you can build that connection with people, you can do anything you want. Like Jim, you could launch a budgeting app. You could launch an investing app. You could launch whatever you wanted. If you have hundreds of thousands of people on the internet that know, like, and trust you, it's game over. You can start literally any business you want, and it's instant, fuel to the fire.
So, I like what you're saying here, because here's the thing that I look at, and I'll just use Create Tailwind. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Create Tailwind, we show people how to use infinite banking. We show people how to go buy assets like real estate and businesses and everything else. When I was a kid, I was told, work hard, go to school, get good grades, get a job, work hard, save for 20, 30, 40 years, build up this nest egg of money, and then hope that you don't run out. Then you move to Florida or Arizona, and you slowly die off, and your money dies off too. And hopefully that happens. Your money doesn't die before you do. And and I never could get excited about that.
No, screw that.
Right. And people in their 20s and 30s, I hate when older people say, oh, this generation. No, I'm really optimistic about this generation. The guys in their, like you, in your 20s, and even people in their 30s, is you get it. You have no interest in spending 40 years saving money and then trying to live off of it. Yeah. That's a lie. Okay. That's a lie that we were sold. But the real truth of it is that you go buy assets that create cash flow. And if you were 25 years old and your assets brought more money in than you need to, then you're financially independent. You don't have to exchange time for money. Mm-hmm. And what I would be doing if I were your age is figuring out, how do I, at some point in time in my life, not exchange time for money? And then, by the way, I don't exchange time for money anymore. But what I do is I do stuff like this because I like to. This is what I'm passionate about. So I go to work and do this because I want to, not because I have to. Mm-hmm. And there's a huge difference, and it feels different. So when I think of create tailwind, um, if I said to you, okay, I want to create this strategy, August, where I got to stand out, and all these other people talking about money and talking about financial freedom and assets and real estate and entrepreneurship and business ownership and, wealth without Wall Street or something like that. Like how do I stand out? And then the thing that I think, and I'm just want to confirm this with you and see, is my story is unique to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I have a story. I think if I were going to go on TikTok, I would tell that story over and over and over again in every different way that I could. And the things that I learned because of my story, your story, you have a different story,
Mm-hmm.
you're, tearing your ACL, doing this. If it was, hey, I went to Nebraska and I was a basketball star and I went to the NBA, then your story would be different.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
talk about like how I could, or how people like me can create something on TikTok. Oh, and then here's the last thing. So right now, when I meet somebody and they're a business owner and they're going to put 100, 500,000, $1 million a year into their banking system.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we treat them with live people and live this and live that, and they watch videos and they take courses on our community. But in my mind, for the younger people, they don't really even need that human contact yet, right? So what I'm saying is something on TikTok that drives them to a course that teaches them something, that they can take more courses, teach them something, and then they're ready to become a client. But they don't need to be handheld like maybe the people in their 50s and 60s.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they actually don't want to be talking to a human yet. Like they want to know, like, hey, yeah, I'll take the course. Yep, I can do that. Yep,
Mm-hmm.
I'm answering or asking these questions. And yeah, I'm okay with some AI thing setting all this shit for me. Where the 40s and 50 person is like, well, I want to talk to a human. Well, no, you don't really need to yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk about that.
Yeah. So first thing in terms of building personal brand and being able to stand out on social media, one, I think it's important to always have like a unique angle starting off. So for you, the infinite banking thing, just off the top of my head, I'm sure there's people that make content on infinite banking, but I don't think a lot of people do. Not that I know of at least. So that's definitely something that's unique. So that off the bat would help you stand out. But biggest thing with social media is so many people are kind of inorganic and they kind of put on a facade when it comes to their content. But people are kind of craving like real people again. You know what I mean? Like people want to see people be themselves on social media. And so obviously you have your own unique personality, like you're uniquely you. So use that to your advantage, like have your personality shine through. And that is infinitely more powerful as well. Not only is it more effective for growing your personal brand, but then again, like I said, you have people that care about you for you. Like people don't watch Alex Hermosi because they like acquisition.com. They like acquisition.com because they like Alex Hermosi. You know what I mean? So it's just getting people to want to pay attention to you and to actually enjoy you as a person and your personality. So just letting that shine through. And then I'd say biggest thing overall is just consistency. So many people lack consistency with this stuff, and social media really is the long game. So, I mean, if you put out even just one piece of short form content a day, and you repost that onto Instagram, onto Facebook, onto YouTube Shorts, and then you also, you can use that to drive people to this podcast, and you can chop up this podcast and have a separate page that posts clips of this podcast. And again, you just do that for a consistent period of time, 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road, you're going to have a big audience. And again, everyone's story is different with social media. Like you could be really consistent with it, come up with a good format. And in 2 months, you could have 100,000 really dedicated followers, or it could take 2 years. And then by year 3, you have 10 million followers. You know what I mean? Like it's always going to be different, but it's just one of those things you kind of got to stick to. And I need to get back into it myself because I've been just kind of like off that personal brand game for a minute now. And it's like, just talking about this reminds me how important it is, because it really is one of the best assets you can build. And then, in terms of getting people funneled into your business, there's a few different things you could do. You could, one, launch a product that would be like, I don't know how to say this, but launch a product that's maybe a little bit more suited, like the infinite banking, but maybe like a lighter version of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You could do something like that in addition to, like you said, just a sales funnel kind of course system that like guides people in, and you can have an online community. There's lots of websites. Alex Hormozy owns school.com. I prefer WAP if you've heard of WAP.io.
Yeah.
WAP is really good. Yeah, you could host, a video course on there that just goes in depth about this infinite banking stuff and all the intricacies with that. And then you could have a Discord community attached to that where you go on and you host calls and you have guest speakers that are high level entrepreneurs come on and give advice, and you just provide all that value there. And you have those people on, reoccurring subscription, and they're obviously getting tons of value from just the different, things you're providing. And then you're obviously building up that reoccurring revenue so that your time is not attached to money, right?
Yeah, no,
Keep
I
building
love
that
that
out.
because here's the thing is we have our own community, right?
Okay, cool. And where's that
we
hosted?
don't have a lot of followers to drive people to those events.
Yeah.
So we probably don't have a way to go to somebody and say, hey, do this joint event with us. And so what we need to do is build the followers, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need to build the followers. But when you said like IBC Light, so the way that I would say that, let me rephrase it to IBC 101, the start. The start is, this is what I would tell somebody your age or even somebody 10 years older than you, is you finance every single thing that you're ever going to buy in your life. You either pay somebody else interest to do that, or you give up interest that money could have earned you, right? And there's no exception. That's what it is. And people my age would say, well, there's no way around that, Jim. I just have to do that. I'm just going to do that the rest of my life. And I'm a good little financial slave. And what I would say is, no, you don't have to do that. Infinite banking can show you how to take over the banking function in your life. So in the beginning, yeah, it might be buying a car. It might be going on a vacation. It might be fixing your air conditioning, whatever it is. But when you get in your maybe mid to late 30s, your 40s, and you're making more, and I'm just saying the average person, because infinite banking works for the average all-American family, is as you're making more money and you're having kids and all of these things, now you can start buying assets. Do people buy assets when they're 21? Yeah. Do most people? No. Mm-hmm. Right? But they will someday, maybe, but most people don't ever, right?
Yeah.
Now, so you can start off with like infinite banking light, as you put it, which I like that. And it's just financing stuff. Mm-hmm. And so somebody could put $5,000 a year, $20,000 a year, something like that. Am I going to go build a real estate portfolio and become a real estate mogul doing that amount of money? No, but as you learn the process and you use it for smaller things, then you can use it for bigger things and bigger things and bigger things, and and the sky's the limit.
And you kind of build up the system, I'm sure, within your head, and you kind of become more comfortable with it. And also, I was going to say really quick, just for, I'm sure you've explained it before on this podcast, but just for any like new listeners and just for myself, because I don't fully understand the whole thing, can you give like a 2-minute brief overview of the infinite banking?
Absolutely.
I have a sliver of understanding, but.
So the average American pays 35.5 cents of every net dollar that they earn to interest. Ew. Okay. To financial system. So like when you buy a house, right? If you bought a $300,000 house, over 30 years, you're going to pay $600,000 a month for that house. Yeah. Right. And so that means that it's not the interest rate, because they'll tell you, oh, you're paying 6%, you're paying whatever for the mortgage, but it's the volume of interest, August, that matters. So if you earn $1, you got to give me 50 cents of it. You don't care what your interest rate is. You just care that you got to give me the volume of what you made, 50%. Yeah. So what infinite banking does is you put money in this specially designed insurance contract. And because you have that money in there growing tax-free every single day, uninterrupted, guaranteed growth, because you have that, the insurance company has to give you a loan, interest only. So now no more volume of interest, just interest only. They've got to give you a loan anytime you want it, no application, up to 100% of your cash value. So your money stays in there growing. Now you get to go use their money instead of the bank. So now you're getting interest only loans, and then you pay yourself back what the bank or finance company would have charged you, which is more. So now you're built, because if you were willing to pay the bank that amount of money, you should be willing to pay yourself that amount of money. So by doing that, you're recapturing interest that you would have paid to other financial institutions throughout your lifetime, especially somebody your age. Okay. Your need for for finance way outweighs your need for investment over your lifetime. And if you could recapture all of the dollars that you were ever going to pay some bank, you're going to be a lot wealthier than trying to save what's left over, right? It's like saving on taxes. Saving on taxes is a game. So same thing as infinite banking and recapturing interest.
That's cool.
So you put this money in this specially designed insurance contract. Then you get other people's money, i.e. the insurance company's money, and you go buy assets that grow with inflation instead of going down in value with inflation, right? Instead of eroding with inflation, they go up in value. So that's the ultimate goal. So you start off recapturing the interest that you're going to pay other people. Then you start using it to go buy assets, and you get the money growing in the insurance contract, and you get the asset, the cash flow from the asset, etc. So that's kind of infinite banking in a nutshell, but it's taking back the banking function in your life, because somebody's going to be the banker in your life, August. Might as well be you.
Yeah, might as well be. And I've just recently started getting into Section 8 real estate investing.
Yeah.
So you could couple that together, and yeah, that'd be cool.
So then think about that. Okay, so let's say that you had money sitting in this insurance contract, and you're going to take the insurance company's money and you're going to go buy Section 8 real estate. Okay, not only do you get, remember I just said that the biggest eroding factor in your life over your lifetime is going to be taxes and interest. Okay, so how do we eliminate both of those things? Is one, as when you borrow money from a financial institution like the insurance company, that interest that you pay to go buy that Section 8 real estate is deductible. Yeah. Right?
It's tax free.
Then you're going to depreciate the Section 8 real estate that you buy. And you're probably going to accelerate that depreciation, like with cost segregation or something like that. So you could literally make $10 million this year, and if you had enough depreciation, you would pay zero taxes.
Yep.
Right? That's the game.
That's the goal. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a game. Right? They write the rules, but we still get to play the game. And so I have a friend who's 37 now. He started when he was in his 20s. Probably 10 years ago, he owned less than $1 million of real estate. Now he owns, I think it's just shy of $1 billion of real estate, and really pays no taxes.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And you know, for everybody sitting out there listening, especially in your 20s and 30s, and my message to people, if I were on TikTok, and I'll talk to you about it afterwards because I'm willing to give it a shot, is stop paying taxes. Stop playing the game. You know, like learn the game. You know, you would never play Monopoly for money, for real money, if you didn't know how to play. Right? You wouldn't just say, well, that's just the way it is. They just take my money every time this happens. No, that's not what you would do. No. I mean, well, I got to pay them rent. I landed on their spot. I mean, it's just, that's the way it is. No. Right? Like, stop. Everything that you've been taught about money is a lie. And by the way, you don't know this at 21 either, because you have had your ACL, but you haven't had any serious illness or anything like that. Everything that the medical system tells you is a lie.
100. I'm very much into health. Yeah, no, our food system is very poisoned. Yeah.
Yeah. So August, think about this. In 1930, spinach had 13 times the nutrients it has today. So when I don't care if you're in your 20s, I know a guy that was 28 years old, his testosterone was 88. Okay, so the food that we're eating is destroying our hormones, right?
Well,
so
a lot of it too. I'm sure you know this,
but what I'm saying is, there used to be this show that was called The X-Files way back in the day, I think in the 80s, and it said that it started with question everything. And what I would encourage young people to do, old people to do, everyone who's still breathing, question everything. Yeah. I'm 59 years old. I said I would have abs by 1/1 of 25. I do. I'm still constantly trying to get better and better and better. And I promise you, I will be stronger 10 years from now than I am today. So
that's awesome. Yeah.
Love that. Like, I don't believe in this aging, just go off into the sunset and die bullshit. It's bullshit. And I normally don't cuss on this show. So
Yeah.
I feel that strongly about it.
No, it is. It really is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a whole other podcast, we could have, I'm sure, is the health stuff. There's so much to talk about in that. There's so many nuances. And
I'm 59. I promise you, I feel as good as your friends that are 29. I mean, I just do.
Good. That's awesome. That's cool to hear. I'm trying to get my dad on that too. I'm trying to get both my parents really into the health stuff.
Yeah. Don't let anybody ever tell you, oh, as you get older, this is going to happen. You're going to have aches and pains. I don't have aches and pains, but I get a massage every week. I get stretched every week. I work out 4 or 5 days a week. I mean, like I don't believe in aging like we've been sold aging works. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I'll give you
an example of that. There's this guy that goes to my doctor. He's in his 80s, and there's a scan that you can get. Maybe this is where you start with your parents. There's a scan called the DEXA Fit, not a DEXA scan, but a DEXA Fit.
Okay.
And it tells you what your biological age is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this guy's in his 80s, and his biological age is going down.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And his biological age is younger than his son's. Now, that's all you need to know. If somebody else can do it, then that means I can do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. That brings me to a great point. Yeah.
One last thing on that. I don't know if you know, do you know who Brian Johnson is? He was the CEO of PayPal.
Yeah.
That's his whole thing is the biological age. He's like aging. Well, every 2 years that goes by, he ages like 6 months or something.
And you know what?
He's got it.
When you have money, then you want to live forever.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. If you don't have money, then you have fear and you have scarcity and you're like, well, yeah, 80 is a good place, whatever. And like, hey, we could all die tomorrow. We could get hit by a bus, but I'm going to live my life like I'm going to live forever.
Yep.
But I'm going to, you know what I mean? Like I tell people, I'm going to be 60 in June. And I say, you know what 60 is, August? And they go, I don't know. I said halfway. And they say, you think you're going to live to 120? And I said, I'm going to plan on like I'm going to live to 120. Yeah. But you know what? I'm grateful for every day that I've got. So
100%.
All right, man. I like talking to young people like you, and especially somebody motivated. And like, how do people get a hold of you to decide if your coaching, if your services are right for them?
I would say Instagram would probably work the best because that's one of the platforms I answer messages on a lot. So my Instagram is just TV Toasty. So just spelled how it sounds.
Okay. And we're going to put that in the show notes. And I would encourage, especially if you have a business and you're like me, and I don't know anything about TikTok, but I definitely want to talk to Auguste about how we can, how we can, because all that I do is try to create value for people about money, financial freedom, about wealth, about faith, about everything that's important to you in your life and things that you want to improve.
Love it.
And the things that I do is I just try to make progress every day. I'm not perfect. I'm not saying I'm some guru like some of these guys that are full of crap on here and just give you like the bigger, better deal. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I can do it better. I try to do it better every day, whether it's all of those areas. So I'm going to reach out to Auguste, see what we can do for our company. And I would encourage everybody in the audience to do the same thing. All right, Auguste, along this way, and obviously you're an exceptional young guy at 21 and doing all the things that you're doing, somebody had to give you some pretty good advice along the way. What's the best advice anybody's ever given you?
Oh, that's a really good question. And that's something I could probably think about a long time and think of something really powerful to say. But I have a business partner who's a little bit older than me. He's 26 and he's taught me a lot. And one thing he always tells me is when you're young and ambitious, it's a great thing, but always make sure to be patient because things will happen when they're meant to happen. And you don't want to force or rush anything. And so, work hard, be patient, and things will fall into place and your time will come.
I love that. I think that's great advice because, when you chase the shiny object, then, and you think like get rich quick kind of things and all that, I've just seen it over the years. It never works out. When you're patient, you do the right things, you treat people the right way, and you'll end up being, I always say, get comfortable slowly, not get rich quick, So get rich quick means you go broke quick too, typically.
Yeah.
All right, last question. If God came down from heaven and only allowed you to retain the knowledge that you've received from one book, what would that book be?
This is a generic answer, but probably the Bible.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So when people say the Bible, and you know what? I knew you were going to say that, August, is now you got to give me a book in the Bible.
Maybe Ephesians has a lot of good marriage advice, and that's one thing I love about the Bible too, is even if you're not religious, which obviously I am, I'm a Christian, but even if you're not, the Bible has so much practical advice in terms of finance, relationships, mindset, really everything, which I think is just really cool. The fact that like, even, sentiment aside, it has so much good in it, which is awesome.
So Nick Costco and I are right in the middle of writing a book called like the 12 most important personal development lessons that you'll, and all the books that you'll ever read.
Mm-hmm.
And then and their roots in the Bible, because one thing that if you read or Think and Grow Rich, if you listen to The Strangest Secret, all of those things are in the Bible. Mm-hmm. And if you believe that the Bible is the word of God, like I do, I mean, it's God guiding you, right? Your heavenly Father guiding you to what you should do and how you should act and how you're going to have success and happiness and how to be married and how to be, have integrity and all of these things, right? How to have a soft heart and how to love your neighbor. And it gives you everything that you ever need to know. And people take parts of that and they write books, which is great. Think and Grow Rich, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I mean, like The Strangest Secret, all of that, that's great. But it all has the roots in the Bible. And if you think, well, the Bible's just like at the very least, it's just a really great book, right? Mm-hmm. That's not what I believe, but I believe that it's the word of God. And, but so I love that you said that. And Ephesians does have some great, I'm a single guy, so maybe I need to go back and read Ephesians because I need some good marriage advice. So thank you for sharing that. All right. Any famous last words, August, or about TikTok or anything else before we wrap up?
Not really. I guess I would just say anyone that's watching, whether you have a, regular job or, you're a business owner, whatever it may be, definitely start posting on social media. I get that it's like kind of a scary thing. You're probably not going to know what you're doing at the beginning, but it's 100% worth it. It's something you can build over time and use that asset for anything in the future. So
awesome.
And also start infinite banking with Jim.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yes. All right, audience, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you, August. Thanks for being here and sharing your wisdom and
thank you.
And just your enthusiasm. And I love like when young people are just, exceptional and going down the right path. So thank you for sharing. We're going to wrap this up like we do every show with the incredible words of Earl Nightingale and The Strangest Secret. Take it away, Earl.
Here's the key to success and the key to failure. We become what we think about. Now let me say that again. We become what we think about.
Thanks for listening to the Breakaway Wealth Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to this show wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. If you want to start increasing your wealth building ability right now, go to community.createtailwind.com to join our free online community and get access to free, in-depth training designed to help you build real, lasting wealth. See you next week.